It was so funny. I was interviewing somebody yesterday, and back to these infrastructure systems, I think he said we're building the size of New York every single month, projected out until like the year 2050 or 2060. And back to what you're saying, right, is if we're building New York City month after month after month across the world until 2060, the infrastructure has to be managed well. Welcome to Liquid Assets. I'm your host, Ravi Karani. Liquid Assets is a podcast where we talk about the intersection of business, policy, and technology, all as it looks at water.
Hi, everyone. I'm Adam Tank, the co-founder and chief customer officer at Transcend Software.
Adam, before the call, we were just talking about you had gone into corporate, and once you have the entrepreneurial bug, you can't escape that. Can you what are you talking about? Why was corporate such a, yeah.
I think I just got frustrated and tired of sitting in multiple meetings deciding about what font should go on a PowerPoint slide. And in the world of entrepreneurship, there is never a world where you're going to spend any more than 10 seconds thinking about that realistically if you expect to get anything done, especially in the early days. It's all hands on deck all the time. No 2 days are the same. You're expected to be ultra creative, ultra nimble, ultra agile. And in many ways, the corporate life is the complete opposite of that. And I just found that I love when I effectively can't predict what my calendar is going to look like for the week. That's a lot of fun for me. And in the corporate world, your calendar is probably triple booked most days. And it's probably laid out months in advance because meetings happen that far in advance. It takes that much time for things to get done. So once you have been a part of this ecosystem, it's really hard to go back.
Let's kind of trace that story. What has been your entrepreneurial journey? And I mean, obviously, I think at the end of that, we should leap into Transcend.
My journey has been, I'm not going to say unconventional, but there's been some twists and turns that have been pretty fun. And I ultimately stumbled into water, which most of us do. Not many of us really think we're going to be water professionals from the day we're born. Maybe there's a handful, but generally that's not the case. So I started out as a career microbiologist. I was a food safety engineer for a Fortune 500 company. And I enjoyed the science of it and I enjoyed that technical aspect of it. But what I didn't enjoy was basically like routine memorization of what I felt were boring quality principles and practices. Like I didn't like the engineering aspect of it. I like being out talking to people. I like being out solving problems on the floor. I enjoyed that type of engagement with people. So I interacted with a corporate sales and marketing guy who came to the plant one day, and it's a long story and it's written on my blog for anyone that's interested. I'll do some self-promo, adamtank.com. You can check it out. And basically I ended up putting my tail between my legs and crawling back to my cube saying, what am I doing with my life? I have to figure out something different. And fast forward about 6 months from then, and I had moved to Brazil to work for a small company in Rio de Janeiro, another food company. And I wanted to be closer to sales and marketing, wanted to be closer to small business. I wanted to get a feel for what it means to be more entrepreneurial and what it means to be in sales and marketing and growing a brand, and had an amazing experience in Rio. I came back to the States to get an MBA and then went to work for GE Water after graduate school, which was really my first foray into the water world at large. And I had an amazing mentor and close friend, still is now. His name is Ralph Exton. And Ralph was always one to encourage me to pursue my interests. And one of those interests was early stage innovation. Again, the entrepreneurial thing, the startup thing, the at the time we were calling it smart water or digital water. And so I was working with the GE Ventures team to determine what water companies we might want to invest in. And through that, came across this concept of non-revenue water and leak detection in potable water systems. So I was fortunate to spin a company out of GE that was a robotics business focused on inspection and repair potable water pipelines. That's where I met you, Ravi, was when I was living in San Francisco, living the Valley lifestyle. That company was acquired. And then if you fast forward to today, now with Transcend, a new software startup, starting out in the water industry, doing engineering design automation for critical infrastructure. So designing wastewater treatment plants, drinking water related assets, and then now power actually related assets, substations, and taking that burden away from engineers in the conceptual and preliminary phases of projects, freeing them up so they can focus on more important stuff. So that's like the long and short of it.
That's awesome. Let's kind of double click into what they are spending time on today and what they could be spending their time on. Like what is that gap that Transcend actually fills for the folks out there that don't know what wastewater, water, and energy look like? Like what is, can you walk us through that journey?
Sure. When you are going to design a new asset, and let's just use a wastewater treatment plant as an example. So every time, for those that are listening that have no clue what happens in water, which is the bulk of the population, you turn on your tap and water comes out and you flush your toilet and it goes away and you don't think about it otherwise. All of that water comes from somewhere and all that water has to go somewhere. And it takes a lot of effort, money, engineering, and built assets to make that happen. And a big component of doing all of that is the engineering work that goes into thinking about how big should these assets be? How much energy do they consume? Where should it all go? How do we treat it? How do we make sure it's safe for people? And in the earliest phases of projects, engineers don't have the time that they want to look at all the potential options for what could exist. You have designs that you've done in the past. You sort of take an old one, you put a new flavor on it and push it to the utility or whoever is the person that's going to be responsible for financing it. And that's sort of it.
Mhm.
So a lot of engineers find themselves in this role where they're copy pasting. They're doing things like spending hours trying to format Word documents, creating technical descriptions and proposals of what they want to design or build. They're moving lines around on a computer screen to try to make things look good. And it's just boring work, quite frankly. I haven't met a single engineer who's told me that they enjoy trying to get an image formatted in Word properly, because anyone that's tried to do that understands moving text with images in Word is like the seventh layer of hell.
Yeah.
So our software takes care of all of that. Our software creates the documentation that an engineer typically would produce in that stage of projects, gets rid of the grunt work, and then lets them focus on what are some more options that might be available to us? What's the best outcome that we can provide for this utility? And we now have the data available to us because the computer spit it out to be able to make smarter decisions around what ultimately we should be building for folks like you and I, Ravi, to have better lives, to have clean water, to have wastewater treatment.
It's super cool. Yeah. It was so funny. I was interviewing somebody yesterday, and back to these infrastructure systems, I think he said, we're building the size of New York every single month, projected out until like the year 2050 or 2060. And back to what you're saying, right, is if we're building New York City month after month after month across the world until 2060, the infrastructure has to be managed well, right? And if you're just kind of throwing it out there and people, one, are not enjoying their job that they're doing, secondarily, it's just grunt work of shaping images in Microsoft Word, right? I mean, I'm sure it's way more complicated than that, but like,
right. Yeah.
I think there's a lot more at stake here from a risk perspective if we're going to be growing at the pace that we're growing. And I think
Totally.
efficiencies are there to be had, which Transcend then unlocks.
That's right. That's right. I mean, we're effectively designing New York City over and over, and we're designing New York City like it was back in 1900 or 1950.
Yeah.
That's what we don't want to break anything. We don't have time to consider new innovations in construction materials, or in the case of water, wastewater, new treatment technologies, new digital solutions that can help operate this infrastructure better. We just aren't taking those things into consideration in the planning phase. So I would ask people that are listening, if you are going to build the New York City of the future, what are the considerations that you'd be taking into account that would make it look different than what it is today? And a lot of people are going to say, I want more natural systems, or I want more natural capital as part of the city. I want more of New York City to look more like Central Park than I do whatever, crammed, apartment buildings that are there. I want more water. I want more resilient infrastructure. I want to be able to make sure that we can handle flooding or droughts or heat. I want to make sure that it's equitable. I want to make sure that anyone who wants to live here can live here and have a good life. But we don't have time to take those things into consideration. So that's what software, ours, and there are others too, that can do that to free up people to be able to focus on those types of outcomes.
That's so awesome. Where I know you've had like history in Rio that you said there's like a bit of a philanthropic slant here too. I mean, and even the name Transcend, right? I want to kind of pick on two things here. Like what is Adam Tank's vision for this company? I mean, it's not just a digital software to help wastewater, water, and electrical companies. Like what does the future look like for Transcend?
Our dream, our vision is that every critical infrastructure project is designed at a conceptual level using our software. So when I talk about critical infrastructure, I'm talking about the infrastructure that we as humanity needs in order to survive and thrive. So that's healthcare, that's transportation, that's water power, that's telecommunications, all of those things. At some point in the future, our software can be used to design all of those conceptually.
Inspiring. And when we go into other things like, and for all of those of you out there, if you want to listen to Liquid Assets, you can find us at liquidassets.cc or anywhere else you get your podcasts, or on YouTube today.